My father, he was a 20-year veteran fire chief. He he started in the service back in 1994, and he he was strictly volunteer basis, so he was a volunteer chief. Um, the fire service was his passion. I mean, that's truly what he loved. I mean, he loved helping people, um, and he did so for 20 years up until the time of his passing. And I mean, he was an organ donor, so he even got the last say so after he passed. Um, he always wound up any way possible having the last word when it come to me and him. But as every little boy growing up, I mean, my dad was, I mean, he's my superhero. I mean, me and him, he always called me his partner in crime. I mean, we always stuck together. We were together stuck together, what, 30 years? And, I mean, he was just amazing. I mean, he was an amazing man. He had a heart out of this world.
He had a heart of gold.
He did. He was always smiling. He, I don't think he ever had too many bad days. He did every now and then, but if he did have a bad day, I guarantee you the public wouldn't know about it. I mean, he always had a good outlook on life, and I mean, his love for his fellow man was above and beyond. I mean, he would give anyone the shirt off his back, to do whatever. I mean, in today's world, I mean, you don't stop for people on the side of the road. It didn't matter. He was gonna stop. He don't care. I mean, he didn't care what it was. I mean, he was gonna stop, and he was gonna check on you, see what he could do to help or whatever. And if he couldn't help, he was gonna stand there and make believe like he could, and I mean, whatever he could do to make you feel better about yourself. That fire station was I'd say probably his third love of his life. I mean, that's how much time and passion he put into it. And, he wanted his crew to be the best there was. I mean, he wanted them to have the best of the best. I mean, whatever it was. I mean, if he had to fight for it to get it, then that's what he would do. And he always stood behind everybody 100%. I mean, he would give anyone the benefit of the doubt, no matter what it was. I mean, if somebody messed up, then in his eyes, there had to be a good reason why they messed up. I mean, it was never a bad thing. I mean, it was always, well, maybe he'd come up with something. And so there wasn't very many people that I can say that actually disliked my dad. I'm actually a deputy back home. And before then, I was a police officer. And my dad rode with me one day, and we had went and ate lunch, and then a call come out. It was actually a fire call of a 18-year-old girl that was going into labor. And so me and my dad, well, I looked at him and I asked him, "You want to go with me?" He said, "Yeah, let's go." I said, "Okay." So we took off, and we get there in a patrol car, and I go back there and I pop the trunk and I'm putting on gloves, and my dad looked at me and he asked me, he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well," I said, "we finna deliver a baby." He said, "No, we ain't." He said, "You are." And he said, "I'll be sure to step back and help you supervise any way possible." He said, "But I'm not delivering a baby." And anyway, the ambulance showed up before anything ever happened. And you could just see the sigh of relief go across his face. He was like, "Oh, thank goodness." He thought it was going to come down to us delivering a baby.
He was a good man. He'd give you the shirt off his back.
Randall.
I mean, and you didn't find anybody that didn't like him. He had a good reputation, of doing what he says he's going to do. And he loved his family. When my husband passed away, his daddy, he thought he had to take care of Mama. He called me 2 or 3 times a week when he was out there on the road, checking to make sure I was all right if I need anything. And, it's just a hole in my heart.
He loved his grandbabies.
Oh, yeah. And they had him wrapped around that little finger.
Yeah, they were.
More especially that youngest one.
Yeah, they were something else.
She told him one day, he run off the edge of the road, she told him, she said, "Pawpaw, watch where you're driving." Randall told her, he said, "I'll drive the front seat, you drive the back seat." She said, "I don't have a steering wheel."
I cannot think of a time that went by that my dad was not helping someone. I would always tell people that my father, he seen the good, and he would always remind you of the good in people. And so I mean he was, I guess you say, all of our anchor.